My in-laws called me an empty-handed burden and threw me out of the house. Then the next morning when my husband opened the lockbox, the screams of regret followed. The night my in-laws called me the empty-handed burden and told me to get out of their house, I was still standing there holding the casserole dish I had made with money I didn't really have. It was the last Sunday of October in Ohio. Cold enough that your breath showed when you exhaled, but not cold enough for snow. The sky had that dull gray color that makes everything feel smaller. We were sitting inside Gerald and Monique Halvorson's split-level house in Dayton, the one with cracked concrete steps and a porch light that flickered more than it shined. I had driven there straight from my shift at the diner. My uniform still smelled like burnt coffee and fryer oil. My hair was pulled back tight in a low bun because I hadn't had time to wash it in 2 days. Darren, my husband, was already there when I walked in. He was standing near the kitchen counter pretending to scroll through his phone. He had that stiff look on his face, the one he wore whenever his parents were around, like he was bracing for something but acting like he wasn't. His jaw tight. Shoulders slightly raised. Like a kid waiting for a report card. We were all gathered around their dining table, the fake wood one with a long scratch down the middle from some old Thanksgiving argument no one talks about anymore. Monique had cooked roast chicken. The air smelled like butter and onions. My casserole dish, store-brand ingredients, stretched thin, sat between the mashed potatoes and green beans. That's when Monique set her fork down and cleared her throat. "I'm just going to say what everyone's thinking," she said, looking directly at me. Her lipstick was a shade too dark for her skin tone. "You didn't bring anything into this family. No savings. No property. No degree that actually matters. And now my son is drowning in debt." Gerald leaned back in his chair like he had been waiting for that moment. He folded his hands over his stomach. "You're a burden, Alara. Empty-handed and heavy. Heavy." The word settled into my chest. Like I was something dragging behind Darren's ankle. Like I was slowing him down. I felt their eyes on me. Darren didn't look at me. He kept staring at his plate like the mashed potatoes had suddenly become fascinating. I placed the casserole dish down slowly. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. "I work 2 jobs, I said. "We split the bills." Monique let out a short laugh. "Waitressing and stocking shelves at Walmart isn't exactly building wealth, sweetheart." "Mom, that's enough," Darren said softly. But it wasn't enough. It never was. Gerald leaned forward. "We helped with the down payment on your house. We co-signed Darren's truck. We've supported him his whole life. What exactly have you contributed besides stress?" I thought about the nights I stayed up filling out insurance forms after Darren tore his ACL. The way I skipped my own dentist appointment because the copay would have been $120. The mornings I packed his lunch at 6:14 a.m. before my own shift started. The 96 days I survived on 4 hours of sleep because he couldn't work full-time and the bills didn't stop coming. I looked at Darren. "Are you going to say anything?" He rubbed his forehead. "Alara, they're just worried." That was the moment something inside me cooled. Then Monique said the sentence that snapped whatever thread I'd been holding. "Maybe you should go back to where you came from. We can't keep carrying you." Back to where I came from. A rented duplex in Springfield. A broken porch step. A mother who worked night shifts at a nursing home until her back gave out and she started living off disability checks that barely covered rent. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. "If I'm such a weight," I said quietly, "then I won't be one anymore." Monique folded her napkin carefully. "That might be best." Darren didn't stand. Didn't reach for me. Didn't say stay. So I picked up my purse and my keys and walked out of that house feeling like something inside me had finally stopped begging. I drove without thinking and ended up in the Walmart parking lot because it was bright and open all night. The blue sign buzzed overhead. I turned off the engine. The silence inside the car pressed against my ears. My phone buzzed. "Where are you?" Then another message. "Don't make this dramatic." I laughed out loud. It sounded strange in the empty car. Dramatic. The inside smelled like old receipts and the vanilla air freshener I'd bought for $3. I looked at myself in the mirror. 34 years old. Dark circles under my eyes. Skin dull from exhaustion. I thought about the first time I met Monique. She hugged me and said, "You're so sweet." I had taken that as kindness. Later I realized she meant harmless. Easy to manage. Darren and I met at a 4th of July barbecue in 2018. He wore a faded baseball cap and offered me a soda. He held doors open. Said yes ma'am to my mom. He worked at a parts warehouse. I was waitressing at a diner off Route 40. We talked about simple things. A small house. 1 kid. Maybe 2. Nothing fancy. Life doesn't ask what you want. In 2021, Darren tore his ACL playing rec league softball. Surgery cost $28,000 before insurance. His hours were cut during recovery. I picked up extra shifts. Took a seasonal job at Walmart stocking shelves from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. I lived on coffee and 4 hours of sleep. My body ached constantly. My feet burned by the end of each day. Monique told people at church that her son was struggling because young women these days don't plan ahead. I planned. I budgeted every dollar. I stretched groceries. I compared insurance plans. I tracked due dates on a spreadsheet. But planning doesn't protect you from being blamed. That night in the parking lot, I made a decision. It didn't feel loud. It felt steady. I wouldn't stay where I wasn't wanted. I checked into a cheap motel off I-75. $62 for the night. The carpet smelled like old cigarettes. The heater rattled like it might fall apart. I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the thin curtains. Then I called Nadine. She had been my manager at the diner. 58. Smoker's cough. Sharp eyes that missed nothing. Alara? You okay? No, I said. But I will be. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, you still have that trust your granddad set up, right? I closed my eyes. My grandfather had left me $182,000 in a trust. Not a mansion. Not some wild inheritance. Just a cushion. One of the clauses protected my contribution if I experienced financial coercion or separation. I had told Darren about it before we married. He said it was mine. That we'd never rely on it. But when we bought our house, $20,000 from that trust went toward the down payment. The deed listed both our names. The money trail was documented. You need a lawyer, Nadine said. Quietly. The next morning at 10:30, I sat in Sloan Whitaker's small office near the county courthouse. The waiting room smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. Do you want a divorce? She asked. I want respect, I said. I don't think I'm going to get it. She nodded. Then we'll start with separation. By 3:15 p.m., the paperwork was filed electronically. The next morning Gerald called. Alara, what did you do? Darren went to the bank to open the lockbox. There's a legal hold notice. I imagined the downtown Dayton bank. The quiet hallway. The metal drawers sliding open. The mortgage company called, he added. They're reassessing ownership because of the trust funds. Monique's voice carried in the background. Tell her to fix this. It was already ugly Sunday night, I said calmly. Darren grabbed the phone. Why didn't you tell me? You told me not to be dramatic. Silence. I didn't think you'd actually leave, he said. They never think you will. I'm not trying to destroy you, I said. I'm trying to stop being destroyed. Over the next few weeks, everything moved quickly. The mortgage company reviewed the documents. Because of the source of the down payment and appreciation in property value, my legal claim to a larger portion of the equity was strong. Sloan calculated my share. With the trust contribution and market increase, it came to $74,000. Darren didn't have that kind of money. Gerald did. He wrote the check. $74,050. The 50 cents made me smile. Petty maybe. But it felt precise. When I picked up the certified check, my hands were steady. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't revenge in flames. It was acknowledgement. A week later, I signed the final separation papers at the county courthouse. The hallway smelled like old carpet and copier ink. A young couple argued in low voices near the vending machines. Outside, November air felt sharp against my skin. Darren stood by his truck. I don't want this to end, he said. I looked at him for a long moment. Saw the boyish parts one once loved. The hesitation. The fear. You let me stand alone, I said. And I finally learned how. He nodded slowly. I hope you grow, I told him. Even if it's not with me. I drove away without slamming the door. With the settlement money and what remained in the trust, I put a down payment on a small townhouse in Springfield. 2 bedrooms. White siding. A tiny patch of grass in back. The first night I ate Chinese takeout sitting on the floor because I hadn't bought a table yet. The place smelled like fresh paint and cardboard boxes. It was quiet. No judgment. No tension humming under the walls. It wasn't glamorous. It was mine. The next day, Nadine came over with a folding chair and a cheap bottle of wine. To empty-handed burdens, she said, raising her plastic cup. I laughed. It felt lighter than I expected. Weeks later I ran into Monique at Kroger. She was inspecting apples. Elara, she said carefully. I've been meaning to call. I know. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Just quieter. We were wrong, she admitted. We thought we were protecting Darren. From what? I asked. She didn't answer. I didn't need her apology anymore. It didn't change anything. That night I sat on my couch with my legs tucked under me and thought about the woman in the Walmart parking lot. She felt lost. I didn't feel lost anymore. They opened that lockbox expecting control. They found paperwork. I found myself. And that was enough.